How's everyone doing out there today? I wanted to make a video for everybody that I guess many people out there over the last 6 to 8 months have seen a video on YouTube by a Dr. Modstein, and whom has, I guess, vanished off the face of the earth lately. I've tried to contact him many times about, doing almost everything that he accomplished in his mod of his original NES Mini Classic, and well, no response. And many people that did respond to his video did not offer a response to me as well. But I was fortunate enough through a bunch of the Facebook pages that a lot of you were able to help put some of this together, and there was some sweat and tears trying to finalize certain things, but I was able to, I would say, 80 to 90% copy what he was able to do, minus the, I chose not to cut open the lid here. I didn't see a point, since I don't have any custom reset save state piece that he had to put in there, and that's okay. I mean, I don't need to have that. I was more concerned with having a working power and reset button. That was really the most important thing. But let me just give you a little tour of at least of the outer case. So as you can see in the front, we have two USB fronts, and the original on-off and reset buttons are here. And as we turn around to the back, you may notice that I opted to add the RCA outs composite, which, I mean, that it just looks super cool on the NES Mini. And when I saw his video, I thought, like, oh, that's super cool. And there's still a lot of situations where if you do travel with this and there's no HDMI, just to have it, available like that, it just fits, versus the original composite. And you'll see here how that there's really no other exterior holes to the thing. I mean, I drilled holes for the composite, but other than that, I did not use the original pin composite that was on the Raspberry Pi 3, and I was able to utilize the original HDMI and DC in. So I'm going to show you here a Raspberry Pi 3 that I bought just to mess with. And essentially, you want to, before you really dive into something, you want to have something to play with. And I had a NES Classic. This is, I have three of them. I have one that I haven't touched, this one, and then the one before this was like my trial and error NES Mini. So I didn't go out and buy like 10. I bought a couple, and thankfully I didn't spend too much money on them. But it was just a project that I wanted to see through, just for my enjoyment, and for anyone else out there that may want to do this. You can see here, we'll get to this in a little bit, this is the original NES on-off board for the front switches. So this was a very difficult thing to figure out at first, but I finally did figure it out. And I had to make a new one for the original one I started to work on, so that's in working order. But I kept this just as a reminder. But back to the Raspberry Pi 3, you'll notice here how I removed the composite pin input that was here. So when you flip it around here, you'll notice that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. If I can get, let me get something to point to that. We have a point here. We have a point here, a point here, and a point here. These 4 are where you would wire your composite cables, which is for the RCA. So one of them is going to be your ground, and one of them is going to be your audio, one's going to be your and the other two are going to be audio, and one's going to be video. So took me a while to figure that out too, but I thought it was going to be much cleaner not to have to drill a hole just for that to be there, to not even use it, because I'm just going to use this. So you could opt to just desolder which was not very hard, just desolder that connection, and then you can just pop it out. And it makes much more sense for this situation, and you're able to save more space inside of the Mini, which will open up shortly. As you can see here, since the real estate here is very, very small on the inside of this, I removed the Ethernet and the USB ports, and I directly soldered my USBs to two of the 4 available lines here. So you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 sets. That's for 4 of the USBs. And I thought that was actually the easiest thing for me to do. I had the right wire cutters, and I was able to get the wires and solder the end of the wires, and then I was able, as long as I was able to desolder this properly to get the cables in and clean, there should be no problem. So as long as left enough slack to do so, you were able to do it. So with that being said, I directly soldered USB here. I have nothing going on with the Ethernet inside the NES Mini. This is just something that I'm going to have to do wirelessly and to connect to, which is fine. I have a old school NES that I converted first, much bigger real estate on the inside of the case for that, so that actually has an Ethernet, which there are many videos online you can see of that happening. But in a nutshell, directly soldering the USB, directly soldering the composite, removing that composite piece, and obviously desoldering and removing the USBs and the Ethernet is the essential thing. So, and you may be wondering now, if you're watching this, if you would have put this here, it's like, well, how did I make this work if you're looking at this the way it is, the DC is over here, the HDMI is over here, and how did I manage to keep these as is? Well, that's where it got tricky, and I had to pretty much go on an Amazon shopping spree. I bought a bunch of stuff, bunch of different HDMI cables, bunch of different USB micro cables, all different shapes and sizes, and I finally narrowed it down to, I'd say, definitely 2, and there could be like a third or fourth one in there that could work, but I'm going to let me pause this video, and I'm going to open up the unit, and let me show you what I did on the inside. Okay, give me 1 sec. Okay, so I got this bad boy unscrewed, and let's pop it open. So as we do it at first glance, you'll notice that it's not secured to the base yet. I felt at this point it's not necessary, because once the top is closed, it's pretty secure, because it is tight, and there are I think there's a lot going on in this particular case. So as you can see from the front of the NES, there you can see how the Raspberry Pi back is in the front. So I have my HDMI and micro USB wrapping around cables to the actual DC and HDMI. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit and turn it around to show you, but let me more or less explain. So I did buy a bunch of cables, and it really came down to what cables were going to be able to be bent or even cut open. And if I have an example, I don't think I have an example of what I did, but well, here's something. This is a base to an HDMI cable that I, if you can see here, this was laying under the end of the USB, and it popped out. So you can Dremel into this, and as you see here, let me lift this up, where I have it hot glued. For this DC micro SD, I'm sorry, micro USB, I soldered from the tip back, revealing and leaving the bare input, because otherwise I couldn't have fit it through the existing hole. Same thing with the HDMI. This female had a covering going all the way to the tip, and you know, for this one especially, I had to cut open, and I was messing with how I could get it to stand. And you'll notice here how I have on Amazon as well, these are some nylon screw lifts, all different sizes with 2 different screws, a bolt, and so I super glued some of these to the base of the HDMI and the micro SD here, that you may be able to make it out in the light here. Not sure if we could get it, but in here, you know, these 2 pieces are lifted with those things so that they nest perfectly in place. And then I hot glued on top of that, and then when I am able to place this down, it's nice and tight. And it's kind of nice how it rests on some of the hot glue. It doesn't really move when it's down. So you know, for these projects, it's gonna get kind of messy with the hot glue. You know, and you know, you can do a clean job if you take your time. I think I did a pretty reasonable job. I didn't like fill this whole case with hot glue, you know, where the USBs come in, and where I needed to secure the ends here. But I think it worked out okay. And when the case is closed, it's closed. You know, the whole point was to get a Raspberry Pi 3 inside here, and I think I accomplished that. But with the HDMI and the micro USB cable, I cut the wires, the actual wire. So if any old-fashioned, let's just say this, you know, USB right here, right? You know, it's got the you know, the casing and the cover. You know, it takes 1 or 2 to practice, but you know, you want to get rid of all of this, and as much as this as you can, and then you know, get rid of the wire, and it allows you to bend the cables a lot better going through underneath of the Pi. And there were some situations where I wrapped it with electrical tape just to be on the safe side, but even electrical tape will bend better than I think some of this coating covering that you have on the USB cable. Especially on HDMI cables, it's very thick and very difficult. The HDMI cable that I removed, this was a flat HDMI cable that you get on Amazon, and that took one wasted cable to figure out how to properly remove the covering. And once I was able to remove the covering and I had the wire, it was very, very flexible, and I was able to like maneuver. A lot of that stuff is now, like, you know, secured under here, and that makes all the difference in the world that it's secure. So let me lift this up so you can kind of just get a peek here, so you can see how some of the USB here is soldered, and back in the back over there, that's where the composites go in. Over here, this is where I have my the reset is set up, and the LED is going into here, and I have a Raspberry shutdown circuit. Very important, I think, to have, and it was a little difficult at first to figure out how to hook up the power and reset to this Raspberry circuit. It was extremely difficult for whatever the reason, but it was, you know, a learning lesson. And if I was going to, let's just say, break it down, here's the original, which is in here. That this is the exact thing that's in here. Now, let me get a little thing to point to here. So this is the reset button, and it has four soldered points. Over in this area here, it broke off, but this was the push on off for the power, and it has six soldered tips that went through to the back. And on the back, these were the only 6 little solder points. And for about a week or two, I had got it to work to only how was it working? I already forget. It was not working. I take that back. I believe it was just not shutting down properly. So I had it originally soldered to the bottom two. I had two soldered points that went to the SW solder points of my Raspberry Pi. On a Raspberry Pi, you have 5 solder points, 2 SWs, 2 RSTs for reset, and then an LED solder point. I had thought I had tried every configuration, and then someone on one of the pages was so kind to walk me through, Ed, who I met on the Raspberry Pi forums, made it very simple that I can use my multimeter over here, and I've only used multimeters for a few things, and he taught me how I could turn it to a certain setting, and then I would touch 2 different points, and if I saw a jump spike in the meter and then turned off to a different setting and those things went away, then those would be my points. And it turned out that the top left and middle left were the points. I think that's what it was. Yes, the top 2. If you end up going to buy a reset switch, and lo and behold, if you look at the case here, there are two solder points that are on the upper part of the side. So that kind of made it eye-opening to me as well, that I just had it wrong. So now that I had soldered it properly, I was able to power on and off. Oh, that's what it was. I was powering in reverse. So when I pushed this button originally, when it was in, it was off. And when I pushed it out, it would turn on. And, I could have lived with that, but that was annoying. So having the solder points properly set over here on your original NES board will power it on and off correctly. And then when you solder the bottom here and the bottom here, RST, to your Raspberry, RST plus and minus, that will do a proper reset. Now, the original NES board here has an LED. This is something that I have not yet figured out how to tap into, which Dr. Modstein has successfully done. And I kind of ruined the board trying to figure out how to do that. But I found an extremely simplistic solution to not even needing to use the built-in LED on this board. Simply underneath the cap here, you can see how I have my blue and white cable here, these little thin cables. The blue one here is for the LED, and the white one here is for the ground. I simply have an LED bulb diode just tucked in. The wires go up and it tucks in under here behind the plastic little covering piece for the LED, and when you power it on, it's there. So it's completely covered, and you can see in here, if you can even make it out, the LED bulb is down there. So for me, problem solved. I did not need to go crazy on using the actual bulb. If one of you out there figure it out, yeah, I would love to know. I would love to know how I would have soldered to this board to do it. But if you look at Dr. Modstein's video, he soldered some piece of solder on one of the points over here, which are extremely small. Extremely small. So it's it burned off one of the little circuits when I tried to do it. So that's the thing, trial and error. But if one of you are able to figure out how to activate and utilize this LED, I would love to know. Just to know. I'm very happy with the LED that I'm using over here. But give me 1 sec, okay? I'm gonna take a break for a sec. Sorry about that. Okay. So the Mouseberry circuit, as you can see underneath here, I have a bunch of different colored wires that go in under here, and just to be clear, 2 of the wires are for the reset, and 2 of the wires are for the back of the push button here, and then the LEDs are a separate, a whole separate cable that you can buy on Amazon, and they get wired, one to the Mouseberry and one to the ground of the Pi, and works just fine on and off. As long as you put your script in just perfect, there's no issues. Now this is the right angle DC that I recommend. I could have trimmed this off at the end here, but I managed to not have to, but I did have to remove the entire casing of the HDMI for it to work and to bend properly. So that's something you're going to have to do. As for the cables, I had took apart my old NES to mod, and I took out the controllers for that, and that's where these color cables come in from, the original controllers that I had used. But you can go out and you can buy something like color coordinated wire that you can use just fine. So that'll be just fine for you. My preference for this at the end of the day was not to make as many holes as I did in my first project, which was to replicate what Dr. Modstein did. So, in a nutshell, I was successful in not having to reverse these, drill a hole for the composite pin cable, and just do this RCA. Now, on his, he drilled holes big enough that the RCA would pop out. This is just an example here. I bought this just to kind of open it up and see. He had drilled holes where he actually stuck them through like this and then mounted it on the inside. These RCAs came from a seller on eBay that I guess it's for upgrading an Atari, and it's like $5, $8, $9. I really forget. But you get these, and you get some resistors, some little chipboard, and but these are the only ones I have found on the internet that you could drill a hole, mount it, and then you're able to, if you can see here, you can screw them in from the back so that you don't have to kind of worry about. Well, it's space saving too at the end of the day. If I had taken something like this, if I bought one of these, which you can find online, these actual black composites, and I mounted that here, this is a lot of space, real estate it's going to take up. So I was able to avoid having to do that, and successfully just do a nice clean solder job on the inside, and it stayed. When this case is closed, it's not perfectly straight like so. It's kind of just tilted a little bit that way for the reason of the micro SD, but that doesn't really matter. It's just, you're not looking at the inside when this thing is closed, but getting everything inside is important and functional, as long as it's functional. So, I'm super proud that I was able to figure this out, and as you can see, I have the those nylon lifts here on 3 points that just to give me enough room to where I can push it down and it's level, and that makes it complete. On my other NES, I actually I was proud of this too. I actually made a hole on the side here where I put a, let me show you. I installed a micro SD extender, and I may do it here, but it came out above the side and it would go through in here. Very careful work, and I did it perfect the first time. I'm just so nervous that I'm gonna mess it up the second time. You know, but I've been toying with the fact that I may not even need to open this up to grab the SD, like I thought I was going to, but we'll see. I'm just not jumping to doing it yet. But if I do, I have one spare, again on Amazon. And I should mention, I did forget this, I was messing with these LED diodes, and I don't think the resistor that is installed on this is the proper resistor, as when I installed it, it was a very dim light. So I took it off, and I had found a 75 ohm resistor that came with the package of these RCAs, so I bought more of these 75 ohms. This made the LED extremely bright, how it should be, and that is, I mean, that's it, you know. Not much more I think I need to do, have to do, but just being able to, you know, close this guy up, and you know, if once I get it positioned right, you know, and I can just pop it on. Just like that. Just like that. And it's done. So, feel free to leave your comments if you like, and if you guys need any help doing this yourself, I am all ears for providing any info I can. You know, I just wish I was given as much help as I could have. You know, I saved myself a lot of stress. But some people came through for me, so I would like to come through for you if it's something you want to do. And that's it. So hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and see you later.